Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to an episode of Friday Night Live. My name is Kesh. I've got Hans and Sean. Mark, we're back in 2023. There's a lot that has happened since we came on the show last year. We took a nice little Christmas sabbatical and we're back. And today, what we really want to share with you is the importance of having professionals work in your team. There are a lot of professionals. In particular, what we want to talk about is using a buyer's agent. What is a buyer's agent? Are they even worth it? What do they really do? And how can we take advantage of their experience? How are you gentlemen doing? How's your week been?
My week's been really, really great. It's been a good week. I'm super excited for 2023, like you said. And the one thing I was looking forward to more than anything, boys, is catching up with the both of you, doing what we do best on this talk. So
That is correct.
I'm pretty keen.
Talkback radio. We love it. I think we do it more for us than the audience, but if we add value, bring some value along the way, we absolutely love it. Now, without delaying it any further, and me stammering my way back into the first episode of 2023, let's talk about...
Are you doing okay as well, or is it?
Sorry, dude. Sorry. Getting a little rusty.
Actually, no, the budgets are getting tough. So
we want to stick it to 25 minutes, so easy.
Yeah.
So the professionals, I know we're going to be talking about buyer's agents, but I want to do a little bit of a shameless plug here. And this is for your best interest. So when you think about real estate, it is a team sport, okay? So buyer's agents are people that come after you have clarity about your strategy and so on and so forth. So I'm just going to name a few professionals. We're going to talk very briefly about them, what they really do. So the first professional that I think is super important, especially for someone who's looking to build a multi-million-dollar portfolio, is an experienced investment strategist. Now, a lot of people get really confused about this, Sean. Before we go into the buyer's agent side of things, can you please let our audience know, what does an investment strategist really do for someone? What is their role?
Great question. I think an investment strategist is someone who has to calculate from a broader lens what someone's future goals and aspirations are, as opposed to what each individual deal-making scenario represents. So a strategist is someone who looks at things going, answering those important nest egg questions around where do you want to be in 5 years' time, where do you want to be in 10 years' time, and then tailoring or curating an approach of real estate around those goals. That's the way I'd view a strategist. Someone who has a deep enough knowledge and understanding of what macro factors affect certain property suburb markets, and then making informed judgments of the right recommendations in a timely manner. I think that's what strategists would do.
Would you say it's fair for me to assume, before I go hire a buyer's agent or even decide whether I want a buyer's agent, would it be fair to say that it is important with someone to really go and get their strategy right first?
You're 100% right. I actually made a video on this thanks to your help. You inspired me with one of your things lately, and my first question I posed back was, A, is there a strategy, and B, how do you plan to take advantage of it? So for me, I think people get bored of me saying it, but I go on like a parrot. It's all about a strategy first and foremost. So definitely get that in place first before you go out there and try and execute some deals.
Absolutely. And now, again, like I said, we will get to what a buyer's agent does. We will talk about that. But before I get to that, Mark, I think after the strategy part of things, for me personally, when we're doing stuff here at JR for our clients and even on our own, having a superstar broker on your side, getting your finance together. Mark, what would you say the importance is of having a great broker on your side, working along with a strategist?
Yeah, it's especially in today's day and age, very important.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not just someone that are getting you a loan, right? You can go to a bank and get a loan. That's the reality. I think it's about working in with someone who can give you a little bit deeper financial understanding to say, right, this loan is going to look like X, but if you are looking to build your property portfolio to whatever it may be, we need to take, whether it be a conservative approach, a harder approach, whatever it may be, but these are what the opportunities or the options, I should say, are going to look like, right? And I think a really talented mortgage broker, especially one that can, in today's day and age, really understand how to get you from here to here. It's a little bit more challenging than what it was 5 years ago.
Yep.
Policies are always changing. Banks are saying one day that they'll do this, and then the next they're saying we're getting rid of that. It's too much risk, right? So you've got to, I believe it's very important to then further do your own personal due diligence on a mortgage broker to say, hey, you know, I hope you're not just, let's say, a cashback broker. You're not just wanting to refinance me in order to give yourself more commissions.
Yeah.
Right? You're doing it for my best interest, and that means, hey, you know, I want to do X, Y, and Z within my
100%.
portfolio in life, and I need your help with that.
That is such a good point. Just going back to you, Sean, and I promise you guys, I'm not wasting time here. We will get to the buyer's agent part. But these two things are very, very important. Sean, how many times, because you're one of very, very few great strategists out there. I'm not saying that because we're mates. Not saying that because we work together. You genuinely are. From experience, from doing it yourself, from various reasons, and working along with a very, very good broker. How important has that been in pivoting? Because right now, with high interest rates, the biggest challenge for people, and again, a lot of amateurs are worried about their repayments, but the professionals are worried about what they can borrow. And you would have set out a strategy for someone and you would have thought of certain properties, but now that person can't borrow anymore. So how important has it been for you to work in line with a superstar broker to rework and pivot in line with what the economy really needs at this stage?
Yeah, good question. I think we've been blessed to have brokers on our team and extended networks and parties where they understand that you know how we say sometimes a one-size-fits-all approach? I think now is the time, especially in 2023, to break all previous standards that people had and break previous expectations that people had as well. 2023 is the year where you go out into something going, you're going to be open to new scenarios, you're going to be open to new calculations, and at the same time, I think good lending specialists have access to lenders that can work well in with, for example, the type of portfolio you have. So I know sometimes that in rule of thumb in the industry, a lot of people will take their income and they multiply it by 6 and then they work backwards and they try and calculate.
I can tell you that is not common sense, my friend. Well,
Yeah.
that's a little pro tip from Sean. Take your income, multiply it by 6, and you'll know what a bank will lend you. There are a lot of moving other parts, so
Yeah, of course.
take it with a grain of salt. There's
Of
not
course.
financial advice.
Of course, and now here's the thing. Like I've luckily the specialist, lenders we have, the lending specialists. If you're a good finance broker, you might be a client today who's well above the 6 ratio or the 7 ratio or the 8 ratio. But there are certain situations where you can bypass it if other criteria are met. So a really good understanding of bank policy, like Mark said, really helps you. And 2023 is not the time to be stuck on wishing and hoping you had good interest rates. 2023 is the year of the astute investor making a move.
100%. And would you say, like this year, more than ever, you've worked really well with a broker? So your clients essentially are getting an experience of sit in the room, have my strategist, have the finance team there, and then this is when the buyer's agent comes in, because the buyer's agents, again, don't want to make assumptions here, Mark, we're going to come to you with this, but a buyer's agent's job becomes so much more easier when they clearly know someone's borrowing capacity, what their goals are, in line with their strategist, to be able to then go out there and find a deal that really matches their strategy, right? Now, because that's what a buyer's agent is doing, working in line with a broker, that becomes an incredible team for the client to work together and actually get the outcome they want.
Yeah.
Now, as much as I've been talking about buyer's agents and saying we will tell you what it is, Mark, this one's for you. What is your definition of a buyer's agent for the audience today? And I know they help people buy real estate, but what do they really do for people?
I think a critical point of being a good buyer's agent, I could be wrong here, but it's negotiation power and skills, right? Because at the end of the day, I have said this a million times and probably said it on here a million times as well, is that you don't need people like us to go on realestate.com. Buying a house, buying a property, I should say, it's not hard. It really isn't, right?
I agree.
But we do have a lot going on in our life, just on everyday living situations and whatnot. High-paid professionals, whatever you may be, right? And to have someone on your side to say, look, I'm going to get too emotionally caught up here by trying to negotiate my way here, and real estate agents that are quite, let's say, experienced are going to see that and say, well, we're not bending over. But I think it comes down to having someone bat for you if you are a purchaser or an investor to say, hey, guys, let me talk to Mr. Agent on Mr. Agent's terms and languages, right? And let's cut a deal where it might not be just the price point that is different to where they're sitting at. It might be other terms that do with the settlement of the property, for example, that create a striking deal, and you know, everyone's happy. Look, a buyer's agent really is what it is. It's an agent that represents the buyer. You know, you can really only be one on two sides.
Exactly, and I really think, just to add to your point, I think professional help is so underrated. You know, we just had the Australian Open earlier this year.
Yeah.
And officially, like, the greatest tennis player of all time in terms of slam titles, has a coach. He probably knows more about tennis than every other person in the world.
Yeah.
But
Could beat his coach.
and he could beat his coach in a game one-on-one.
Yeah.
But he has a coach, and so did all the greats before him as well.
Absolutely.
So I think it's about having a professional edge where you get someone with a really objective view come in, and obviously they understand your goals, but like Mike said, specialize in the one thing that you need during a real estate transaction, whether it's local market knowledge, whether it's negotiation power, and so forth.
I couldn't agree with you guys more. And again, for the audience here, there's no bias, but I'll give you an example, right? So 97%, more than 97% of real estate that is sold in Australia has professional representation, so real estate agents. And for those of you don't know, I used to be a real estate agent, and we actually went through sales training, and our entire job was only one thing: get the most money for the vendor. Now, the way I look at this, and going on the back of what you said, with professionals, when you go buy a property, it is a 20-30 year commitment with loans. So for the cash flow, growth, blah blah blah, that it's a 30-year commitment. In today's market, you're looking at a minimum of $500,000 and above, depending on what range you start at, for anything reasonable in today's market nationally, right? And for me, the way I look at it is a 30-year commitment, which is a pretty big commitment, and people go spend $1,800 on a phone when they want to scroll on TikTok, but will not spend $30 on a book to learn something. So I feel having professional representation on your side, a buyer's agent, is actually a fair balance, because now I'm going into buying a property. You're a trained real estate agent whose only goal is to convince me to pay the highest amount of money to create competition in that property marketplace. And they go through scripts, and that's what auctions are designed for.
Yeah.
And it's like going to court, and you're going to get jail for 30 years, right? 30 years of jail. And you're going against a Harvard lawyer, and you read up in your local library about 4 books, and you represent yourself. I'm making $1 million commitment here, right? I want to make sure that I am being represented by someone. The second thing I have noticed in all of our dealings, whether you're dealing with new property, existing, doesn't matter, whether you're dealing with developers or builders, or whether you're dealing with real estate agents, whether you're dealing even with direct sellers for that matter, right? I feel when they know, and I've experienced this, Mark, I'm sure you have, Sean, I'm sure you have, they actually, contrary to popular belief, agents actually love to talk to us. They actually love to talk to us because they know they're not going to get stuffed around. They know that when a buyer's agent has approached, now if you're an agent and I came to you and I said, Sean, we're looking in this area, we're looking for a very particular deal for this and this reason, whatever the client strategy would be, right? And this is what we're looking to do. I know what the median sale prices are. I know this, I know this, I know this. And buyer's agent has about 8 or 10 other suburbs in their mind. They're 15,000 plus suburbs, mate.
Yeah.
The agents love it. Wouldn't you love to speak to someone who's speaking your language, is not messing you about, is going to come directly to the point? Let's get rid of the dance and let's come to the point. Let's come to an agreement. Would you agree?
As a professional, 100%, yeah.
So I really, really feel that having professional representation in whatever shape or form, having the best accountant, having a good investment specialist, broker, having an investment strategist, and if all three, shameless plugs, that's what we do here, can work together in synergy to get the client an outcome and work with the client for 10 or 15, 20 years, that's a superpower. Absolutely a superpower. Now, Sean, I know you're a very optimistic person, but you know, I want you to help us outline a few problems that people face in the marketplace through purchasing a property, the experience of buying a property. Can you outline a few common problems people go through?
Yeah, of course. I think one of the common problems that we see all the time, especially in the market that we've had over the past couple of years, is I would say the general dealings of auction pressures. And when I say auction pressures, I'm speaking about problems that, let's say, if you had not had buyer's agency or a buyer agent or a strategist representation, Auction pressures can really, really screw you around. So you might be in a room where you turn up to an auction. Now, no one knows this, but before you actually turn up to an auction, if you are a serious buyer or an investor, you're actually meant to have an auction strategy.
100%.
Because we know this, being professionals, that the vendors have their auction strategy. They have their certain pain points. They know what to press. The auctioneer usually is very, very well trained on making sure that the vendor gets a good outcome.
You are on the money. Ladies and gentlemen, what Sean is saying is literally the night before the auction, the agent has a meeting with the auctioneer and the vendors, and they actually map out a game plan to get the most dollars out of you.
And to that point, where I think the red flags happen is these days it's virtually almost all good homes going on auction.
Yeah, agreed.
And that's one of the pressures that I've
Irrespective of market, that's true.
Yes.
When it's a good home, they go to auction.
I was having a meeting with a lot of people in the past 6 months who have still not been able to buy their dream home, that have not had buyer's agent representation. The guys that had buyer's agent representation have obviously been able to secure some fantastic deals, especially during the break period, which is surprising. But we're looking at a situation where auction pressures, if not handled correctly, can be a big problem, which doesn't seem like it, because you turn up to an auction and you do your game plan and you walk away without the house. So you think, well, that person was always going to get the house anyway. Yeah. Probably not always the case if you actually had something going in. So that's one thing.
100%.
Another common problem I see
and it's super disheartening if you think about it, like, especially for owner ocs. If you walk through a property with your missus and your kid and you looked at the local school and you've got these hopeful eyes, and then next minute, bang! He's like, see you later, mate. You're not going to get it. Like,
well, the next minute is cash turns up to the auction and then you just can't buy it.
In my outbid plates.
Exactly. And we've got to feature that on Friday Night Live soon, so I'll keep for that for the future. Another good common problem.
That's such a good point, Sean. That is a very good point.
Another problem I wanted to highlight is I would say a lack of understanding about the local market you're trying to buy in. So when I say a lack of understanding about the local market you're trying to buy in, we three know this. The suburbs that we know close, near and dear to our heart, there is a good side of that suburb, and there is a street where you don't go on.
Yes.
100%. Right?
Everywhere. Every city.
Every city has this. Now, someone with actual market knowledge, or you might be working with a buyer's agent who has local market knowledge that can help you avoid certain traps, because people get attracted to sometimes the best price, and they go, hey, I'm in the suburb and I'm getting a great price because an equivalent home sold for $300K more last month, but now I'm getting it for $300K less. But there needs to be a reason behind that. We need to justify that. It can't be all macro factors.
I actually have a story very quickly, literally before I forget. So, the Hawkesbury River, that region?
That's a big region. Oh, the whole river, or
the region there which got flooded when
Hawkesbury.
Hawkesbury, right? So this is a true story about a person who bought a property, and they had a buyer's agent. They had a fallout, and they went, "Nah, I can do it on my own. Don't care about all of this. Blah blah blah." So what you're showing me is almost 300 grand more, very similar, and I'm going to buy this. Anyway, long story short, that particular property, everything there's in flooding zone, but that property flooded. But let's just say that was unfortunate. But the biggest problem now is the agent was telling them not to go there, because the agent from experience from Queensland properties said to them, over a period of time, when places get flooded again and again, they become uninsurable.
Yeah, that's the problem.
And he kept going on. The buyer then said, mate, look, I'm not an idiot. I want to help you, but I'm telling you, no, I've called up Amy and they said they'll insure. And he said, I know they will now. If it happens again and again, they will not. And I've dealt with this in Queensland.
Yeah, right.
No advice, bang.
So he's a veteran, veteran flood-prone buyer's agent. That is a good niche to be in.
No, but because he knew this stuff and he was doing stuff, Actually, bro, absolutely.
And yes. that would be a nightmare to try and get rid of that asset now. I mean, there will still be people that go for it, but uninsurable assets are extremely high.
This is when you get the vultures to come in. You're asking for it.
And then the vultures build their own dam, and now the property's expensive again.
100%.
Exactly.
Absolutely 100%.
Yeah.
Mark, have there been situations where price, because I know you do some fantastic work, have there been situations where often I think in negotiation people think price is the only factor, but have there been other factors that motivated the vendor to come to an agreement? Have you been in situations like that other than price?
All the time, to be fair. All the time. Again, going back to the commercial side of using a buyer's agent, you know, when dealing with a transaction of some sort, when you're wanting to buy a property, you know, price is always going to be, no one will ever meet where they want to be from day one, right? And that was a very rare occurrence that we experienced 2 years ago, right? Where people were saying, "I will pay overs because I need to be here," right? Literally experiencing FOMO, right? But in today's day and age, I think it really does boil down to, you know, you're trying to point out a lot of people point out the problems to start with. Problem here, problem here, problem here.
Yeah.
Should be much lower. Right?
Beating up the pest and build.
Yeah. But I think it should also boil down to, you know, just as an example, you know, we will give you again, I'm going to use settlement terms for now. We'll give you a longer settlement term or a shorter settlement term, because there's a lot of people that if they're selling a property and it's their principal place, you know, like no one wants to be forced out of a place in 6 weeks.
When you're able to do something like that,
especially if you live there for 20 years.
That's what I'm saying.
And again, you don't need to share. You did something really similar, and you got a really good outcome for a client in Melbourne.
Yes.
Do you mind sharing that story a little bit of what the vendor wanted?
It was a, you know, they were asking $950, I think it was. Let's just call it $950. We went there originally with an offer of $910, knowing that would never be accepted, but just to start the ping pong. And we ended up just moving in increments.
You love it.
5 and 10. I do love it. But look, to be fair, it was a Monday morning that the first offer got put in at 9:10. By Friday afternoon, we had a signed contract of sale at 9:30.
Yep. Oh wow!
And the valuation came in the following week or the week after that at 9:35.
So guys, for context, this was last year.
Return on investment.
This is, by the way, for context, this is last year, and this is before like what people are feeling right now. In that market where no one wanted to give, every vendor said, "I can get anything I want for my property," and this was the outcome. So why were they willing to do that? What did you offer them?
Settlement terms.
Right.
That's why I keep saying it, right? Because it does work. It does work. Why does it work? It's because, okay, the clients they went, let's say, 2 months now of paying interest without getting any form of return. And that was the deal breaker, right? That's essentially what knocked off 20K off the purchase price, right? Or nice the asking price. And, you know, the fact that we said, look, we know that this client is in a position to hold on to, you know, interest repayments and continue paying their rent and so on and so forth, and it's not really going to hurt them too much. Let's go for it, right? If it gets the deal across the line.
Right, if I pay $4,000 in interest and get $20,000 in savings at $4,000 in interest.
Exactly. And when we worked out the numbers, they were still $6,000 ahead if they had done it on their own and just purchased at the $950 that they were originally asking for from day one. But it was 5 days of just back and forth, and contract to sale was signed. 3-day cooling period. Before you know it, finance was pre-approved anyway, but it was a very smooth process.
Again, for context, guys, it's not because Mark's so great at negotiating and stuff. Again, like I said,
he is,
he is. I know, but a lot of professionals, real estate agents, and sellers know when a buyer's agent comes in. They know they've got a qualified purchaser, and they're speaking to someone who's just not out there, you know, shopping for shopping's sake.
That's purely all it came down to.
Yeah.
The conversation was that
we're
I've got
serious.
these guys, they're ready to go. Yeah, all right, let me go back. And the conversations with the agent were less than 30 seconds.
Siri wants to jump
Siri
in.
wants to come
Love
in.
FOMO from Apple. Sean, coming to you, because we're talking about existing property. There's a lot of bait advertising on realestate.com, right? And the reason we do FNL is to buyer awareness, right? There's a so this is directly dealing. So many people prefer to buy new properties. They want to save on stamp duty. They want a newer house. They want to be in an emerging landmark, whatever their reason might be, right? And a lot of times people get baited on a price, and often you hear horror stories about, oh my God, I signed a 310 contract and they charged me this and charged me that, and this happened, and delays happen, and all that. We're having all sorts of fun stuff.
Going up to the moon.
Right? So what can you help our clients understand and our viewers understand in regards to that? Like, what should they be looking out for, and what sort of negotiations have you done in the past when we're talking strictly from the developer and a builder, because it's a very different negotiation than a real estate agent?
Yeah, the main thing I want to talk about just with existing property as well is what you tend to get seen advertised versus what you're actually receiving from a settlement are two completely different things.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So list price, list guide versus what's actually happening. So the misconception is people have budgets that are given to them from their broker or their bank, and then they go to the marketplace and they see all the guide lists that match their budget. So let's say your budget's 800K for an investment, and then you go to all the listings at 800K. They're not settling at 800K. The 800K is to garner, again, as a tactic, as much interest as possible to come in.
Especially in this market, they will price them just enough to get you interest and get like a feeding frenzy going, essentially.
Exactly. And some agents have come to the realization, I think, where they will still list at 2022 prices, but they've prepared the vendors to take a bit of a 2 to 3% hit on those as well, which is super understandable. So you can advertise it both ways, but it's not how settlements happen. But especially during new properties, even today, you can still go on virtually most master planned websites and have a look at things like a house and land or land only. So land only tends to be quite accurate to versus what a channel partner can do. So a channel partner is someone who's got a relationship and ongoing structure of deals. They can help you win the deal by just maybe a few $1,000s. It's nothing major. They can help you.
Sometimes you get access to lots that are not available even to the local sales agents.
Exactly. So this is the thing. So even having a strategist.
Pre-release stuff. You've done that for a client so many times, where clients have just made $50,000-$60,000 because Sean was able to get them pre-release stuff.
Exactly. Yeah.
And with the builders, what happens? What are the games they play, and like what are the negotiations from a buyer's agent's perspective when in that space?
So in that space, you have to understand that a builder's job is one of two things. So if you're working with a builder who understands that the property is actually for an investment versus an owner-occupier. So if it's an owner-occupier, builders know that people are quite emotional about buying homes. So they leave all the selections process until after the initial deal is done. And what buyers don't understand, they always get their hands burnt after they buy a house, is they sign a contract, but then everything inside the house comes after they sign the contract.
So basically what they're signing for is base price.
Always.
And the builder will be like, no, do the landscaping yourself, it'll be cheaper. And they'll get them.
Exactly. So that's just one of the things. But on top of that, there's so many other hidden things that and little caveats where if you're not experienced at building, you can get caught out with. So variation costs, price increases,
Site costs, peering costs.
Extra site costs that were not included in your original contract. And then people get stung by this all the time. So having a good buyer agent for new property is someone that understands that as an investor, your goal is to get a great deal on the overall house, but have something that's A, able to be resold fairly quickly if you needed good capital growth, and B, able to be leased out with the least amount of headaches. So we don't need to put Italian marble on the ceilings of our investment properties unless that market demands it, right?
Yeah.
But we do need the basics. So nicer vanities, nicer stone
higher
ceilings, so forth, so on. So these are the things that you're meant to look out for. So for us, I think 2022 was a crisis year for a lot of builders who genuinely would have gone bankrupt if they did not pass on price increases. But luckily, because we know a construction arm and have a construction arm in New South Wales, we can understand fairly well
what prices are and stuff like that.
Ideal prices should be.
Yeah,
exactly. And things have stabilized since. So I think the key is to getting a good little fixed price contract and making sure you're working with people who have expertise in the state you're trying to get access to for investment.
So to now wrap this up, if we will. So the overview of what we've learned today is this. Look, a buyer's agent is someone who's going to professionally go out there and find a property for you. If they can then work in line with an investment strategist and a superstar broker, it becomes even more better because the buyer's agent's brief just gets so much more better.
Yep.
There's some nuances when it comes to purchasing of property, and it'll be only in your advantage in most cases. Again, like I said, like everything else is goods and bads, but it'll be in your advantage if you're especially going up against a developer or a builder or a real estate agent. You're doing a deal with your mate, different story. You know, all you need is a solicitor. But if you're doing a deal with a stranger, it's not going to hurt to be able to be working with a professional to actually go out there. So yeah, I think the key bottom line is if you want to buy a property, you want to make an informed decision, at least go speak to someone.
Yeah.
Interview a couple of people, see what they offer, what their processes are, and if it aligns with your values. and if it aligns with your goals, and essentially go work with them.
True.
And that's a wrap. That was pretty good. That was pretty good wrap, wasn't it?
That was a phenomenal wrap. I loved it. That was really fun. Good
Do you
question.
still want to do 2023 Rapid Robins? Did we do that?
Yeah, we'll do them with just one question each.
Yes, let's
So
do it.
2023. The question is, who? Who do you both have your eye on this year? Could be anyone. Someone personally, you know, or a big personality that you want to follow. Who is someone you're going to keep a close eye on this year in the world of either investing or fashion or... But 2023, who's the person you want to keep your eye on?
I've got my eye on the guy from OpenAI. I think that's very, very interesting to me, what ChatGPT is doing out there in the world. I love technology, and I think it influences everything we do. In fact, we've been having faster booms and busts in the market because of technology. You can quickly buy and sell stuff and get your pre-approvals online. So pace has become a bit faster. So I think I'm going to be covering that. I'm going to be tracking artificial intelligence and people in that space. Essentially.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and how it's going to influence business.
That's super interesting. I like that. That's really good.
It is a good one. My one is Pete Davidson. I want to see which woman he ends up with.
I love it so much.
Mate, Pete has to have some sort of magic. He has been with the best. But you can't keep him for long, so there must be something. Or maybe he doesn't want to.
And Sean.
Not sure. Shawnee.
Sean, I want to watch a little bit of LeBron James this year, so I don't know whether there'll be a surprise political announcement that comes out, or whether it's going to be the announcement of a retirement, or like Tom Brady just retired. I don't know if you guys heard. So again, for the second time, just like Michael Jordan did. But I want to watch LeBron James because he's in that final phase of his career, and if all goes well, I hope he does well. But I'll be keen to see how he caps it off. With being.
Mate, if it's going to be interesting, and you think the story's getting interesting, buy all his sneakers.
Great investment tip, not advice.
Not advice.
But I'm going to do it anyway. So good idea. I'm going to do it straight away. I love the advice. Cool.
Perfect. Awesome. That's a wrap, ladies and gentlemen. That was our first episode, whether you should use buyer's agents. My name is Kesh. I got Sean. We got Mark. I'll see you next time.